This week in 2010, Roy Halladay threw a no-hitter against the Cincinnati Reds in the National League Division Series.
Halladay is one strike away. The 0-2. A bouncer. Ruiz. In time! Roy Halladay has thrown a no-hitter.
This marked only the second time in history that a pitcher threw a postseason no-hitter, and the first since 1973 that a pitcher threw two no-hitters in the same season. First time was on my birthday, so that was a cool birthday present. But despite being bounced by the Giants in the playoffs, this moment was voted the best postseason moment of the year. So what was Roy Halladay's only mistake? A walk to current Philly, Jay Bruce.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk Philadelphia here on LaSalle TV. I'm your host, Josh Abrams. That was Tyler Pittis, our other producer, so thank you for the intro there. We have a lot on store for you guys today. We're going to talk about a couple headlines. We'll get into Eagles talk, take a quick commercial break, Phillies talk, and then Fast Five. Let's get right into the headlines. I have Tyler Small and Caleb Fleer with me to talk the first headline of the show, which is the Flyers' upcoming season. We had to fit in the Flyers for a little bit in the show today because they do open their season tomorrow. I didn't know that they opened in the Czech Republic. It did seem a little weird that their game was at 2 p.m., but obviously that explains why. Just in general, how are we feeling this year? The mindset has to be different this time around compared to years in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it should be a great experience playing in Prague this year against the Blackhawks. It's going to be a good opening game, and then they get to host the Devils a couple days later back home in Wells Fargo. So it'll be huge for them to get good jump to the start of the new season. Got a lot of publicity surrounding around it, whether it's the stadium increasing or just the new contributions, Kevin Hayes coming to the team, and just other names that are going to be assisting this team. So we'll have to see if they can get out of the gates quickly and with a good record.
Yeah, they got a lot of new and young guys this year, so hopefully it can be a better season than the previous couple of years it's been for them.
Yeah, I mean they did add a couple key players such as Matt Niskanen from the Capitals, and I didn't even realize how old he was, but he does bring a huge veteran presence to our defense that I thought was already young. Do you see the defense improving at all with that kind of addition?
I definitely do, and when you say it's such a youthful defense and a youthful team in general, besides that front line. And it'll be huge for people like Sanheim to step up this year, or Hag, or people that are in the lower 20s that have just really got to step up this year and will be big not only for the opening of the season, but for those dog days in the middle of the year when you need some of your vets like Voracek and Giroux taking a couple days off, whether it's load management or just not playing as much ice time. It's going to be huge for them to step up.
All right, so that's going to do it for the first headline. The second headline that I wanted to bring up, and this was one that I proposed to talk about on the show. I wish we had more time to talk about this, even though it's not Philly related, it's football related. Vontaze Burfict, as you guys know, has had a league reputation for 7 years now, maybe in his 7th season, just playing dirty. He got a full season suspension, which in this case is 12 games. Do you guys, I'm just going to cut right to it, do you guys agree with his punishment? Is it warranted given his ugly history in the NFL?
Especially with his track record, I think he especially really deserved that suspension. I mean, he's lucky he's not even kicked out of the league at this point. I mean, the amount of hits that guy's hit on guys, I mean, even this past one on Doyle, I mean, that was ridiculous. I mean, he went right for his head. It was obvious. I mean, he's laughing when he's leaving the field about it. That was just ridiculous.
What's your thought on it?
It's a sad part of the game, but it's something that like less than 1% of the league really has to face, just these people that are purposely out to hurt injured players. You look at that hit on Doyle, he was already wrapped up for a tackle. There was no need for him to even come into the play, let alone to do what he did. And I think that he should be suspended for his career. He shouldn't be able to come back at all.
Right, and I just find it ridiculous that players, even such as his teammate Derek Carr, are kind of defending him. I mean, we can't have that in football with how dangerous it is. So that's going to lead us right into Eagles talk, and what a good week we had last week. Unfortunately, we couldn't talk about it, but a 34-27 victory in Lambeau. I don't really care how early in the season we are. That was a season-defining moment, and it was a season-saving win.
It was a must-win. Falling to 1-3, even though it's a tough game in Lambeau, short week, you have to win that game if you want to have any chances at the playoffs this year. So getting them back to 500 is going to be a huge momentum swing. Now they got an easier matchup against the Jets, but the one biggest takeaway I saw from it, they ran the ball. Passing to running 27-26. Jordan Howard had his best game in Lambeau, even though he was a Bear for so long. And it was just really great to see Doug Peterson actually hand off the ball.
Yeah, like Tyler said, that was a must-win game. I mean, you can't fall to 1-3, especially in the NFC East. I mean, with the Cowboys being 3-1 right now, you just couldn't do that. I thought they really utilized the run game well in that game. I mean, the Packers coming into last week were averaging like 5 yards per carry on each run, so they really used the run game well. I mean, 15 carries for Jordan Howard finally, so that went well.
Yeah, I think that was really the big takeaway from the game offensively, was that we finally got the ground game going. And I think a lot of Eagles fans are happy that they're finally getting the usage out of Jordan Howard that they were expecting to see in the beginning.
Miles Sanders as well, going for 72 yards. And especially in the game where, on the other end of it, the Packers could not run the ball at all. 6 times in the fourth quarter, they were inside the 2-yard line, couldn't put it in, and wound up being an interception in the end of the game. So it's funny to see the Eagles win because of the running game.
Yeah, and I mean, flipping over to the not the other side of the ball, but the other aspect of the offense, we finally got to see Alshon Jeffrey play again. And even though his stat line might have been a little bit pedestrian, as they say, 3 receptions, 38 yards, the 1 score. I mean, obviously that proved to be huge. I think just having him on the field, it just played a huge part in Ertz finally having an efficient game. So I really think once we get Deshaun Jackson back and having a healthy Alshon, I don't think we should be as concerned going down the line as we may have been the last couple of weeks.
No, you're sorry. You can go
Very good. Yeah, I mean, it was tough to see Deshaun and Alshon go down early in the season, but I mean, once we get those guys back, I think there should be no need for us to worry. I mean, I think Deshaun, he's on track for like the Dallas game I see now, so I mean, that's still about 3 weeks away, but when we get those guys back, I think we'll be playing good football.
Yeah, and just in regards to game plan, just defensively, Green Bay has a great pass rush, but they obviously couldn't use it. They couldn't pack the box because they had to have more of a aggressive zone. And just because of that, just because you have one weapon for Wentz, who is so dangerous with nobody on the field, even if he just has Ertz, now if he has a couple wideouts for him, he can actually spread out the defense and give some running lanes, then eventually he'll be able to explode because he didn't have big yard games, but 3 touchdowns was huge for him in this game.
Yeah. And, again, I don't think we're really going to be fretting about the offense from here on out. That's assuming we continue to put up this amount of points. But the one side that we have to continue to be worried about is the defensive side. Now, Pro Football Focus probably has the Eagles ranked as the top 5 line in terms of getting pressure. And while we're not able to finish that pressure and convert them into sacks, just the fact that we're able to get to the quarterback so fast is pretty encouraging. But our secondary is still very now at this point right now it's depleted. But before it became depleted, it was very poor.
Yeah, and it's just a matter of them staying healthy. It really has been a struggle for them to keep a couple corners or safeties, and it's been a next man up approach for that. But
do you think them even being healthy enough as it is, like what we came into the season with at full health, is that even still good enough? And now I'm just talking about the secondary at this point.
I mean, I don't think it is. I mean, we saw the first 3 weeks of starting cornerbacks and just couldn't stay with anybody. I mean, it's the same year. Every year it's the same thing, that we think they're going to be good and then they just get burnt every game. I mean, it's just hard to watch.
And do you think it has something to do with just generally not being able to defend the pass? I mean, we have the second best rushing defense in terms of yards given up, but we're also last in the league in terms of total passing yards. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out the correlation between the two.
Well, I think for now the stats are still a little bit swayed because you did have a lot of top-tier quarterbacks that you had to face. Matt Ryan a couple weeks ago, Aaron Rodgers tore us apart for 462 yards.
No, you might not be top tier.
He's not a top-tier quarterback by any means, no. But him and the Lions really have had a sneakily good year so far. So just any team in that conference has been tough to deal with this year. And it's definitely going to take a lot of adjustments, whether it's a new defensive scheme, just a lot more blitzing, which a lot of teams like to do when they don't have that. Just give the quarterback no time to really react and force one-on-ones. But it's going to be tough to see what Peterson does.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this week is kind of a nice little week to maybe test things out. Not saying that the New York Jets are any team to scoff at, but this might be a good experimental week for Doug Peterson. We'll see what happens with that. So we're going to talk about this upcoming game with the Jets. They may not have a great record right now. They definitely don't have a great record, but they do have some playmakers on both sides of the ball. Let's start on the defensive side. I don't think we have faced a safety this season quite like Jamal Adams. I mean, he's just an animal in that backfield for the Jets. Assuming he can stay there and have a healthy career there, he may turn into one of the better safeties we may have ever seen. I mean, and then on the other side is Le'Veon Bell. And again, while our rushing defense is very spectacular, we, again, haven't faced a running back of that caliber. So how are you guys feeling just in general about this game? And I guess we could really segue into our picks if we wanted to.
Well, I would say in regards to defensively, I think Adams is probably one of the best hard-hitting safeties that we've seen in a very long time, as you said. I think he is a top tier, but it is a good week to face him as he's had some conflicts with his coaching staff and how he's been used. And on the other side, Le'Veon Bell hasn't been able to be Le'Veon Bell with his offensive line. He really hasn't been able to do anything, only has one touchdown in the year, about 160 yards on the ground. So I think defensively you'll be good with that, and obviously without Sam Darnold as well. And you'll just have to watch out for him and even Quentin Williams, who really hasn't had a big year yet, but obviously a big draft pick for them.
Yeah, defensively, I think we especially have to watch out for Jamal Williams. I mean, that guy's just a ball hawk. He's all over the field. He's a hard hitter. And then on the offensive side, Le'Veon Bell, I mean, he's got like 55 carries this year for like 155 yards. So, I mean, he hasn't really blown up yet, but you also got to look at Sam Darnold's been out, so they've been probably stacking the box on him. Probably hasn't had much run lanes to go through. So when Darnold, maybe, I don't know if Darnold, I think Darnold's still questionable this week. So
yeah,
that's a big call right there too.
You know what? He did say in an interview today, because of course he is dealing with mono and it is a rather serious injury. He did say, and I quote, "I don't want to die." And if you don't want to die for your team, that really is a lot to take in as a fan. Yeah. I don't know how much you like that as your leader.
You wouldn't appreciate that here in Philly, not at all. But Darnold being out may help me lead into our picks, because we're feeling very confident this week. Even if Darnold was starting, we would be feeling very confident. I have them winning 28-13, and again, with Alshon back, having that not necessarily downfield target, but a nice 10 to 15 yard guy, I mean, just having that as a little boost is going to make all the difference. And you guys are feeling confident too, so talk about your picks.
Yeah, I had a blowout 30-7 just because, again, Luke Falk now is the third string quarterback for the Jets. Don't have a lot of fear with him. I think that the Eagles are going to have the ball for most of the game, and Carson Wentz will be able to control this offense.
Yeah, I have the Eagles cruising by them 31-17. I have Carson Wentz being the MVP. I mean, I just don't think there's no way they can struggle against this team. I mean, it's at home. You're coming off a big win in Lambeau. You got a lot of confidence right now. I think they should just dominate this game overall.
Yeah, so I think we're all feeling very good this week. You can catch our picks out on Twitter on game day. And we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk some Phillies. Stay tuned. Sun of fire and beauty, destruction and life. Something so magnificent you can't even look at it. My sun of fire and passion, life until death. Something so magnificent you can't look away. Maybe because we don't look at the sun, we are afraid that we might not be able to let go of the beauty that just might end up destroying us. Welcome back to Sports Talk Philly on LaSalle TV. We're going to get right into Phillies talk, and thank the Lord that this is the last Phillies talk until next semester. The Phillies finished 500, which is the best that they've finished since 2012 when they didn't make the playoffs, the year after that run ended. It's kind of bizarre looking at that graphic because they weren't dead last in any of these statistics, but it did feel like that at some point. I think really the story of the Phillies this season is kind of like the story of the Flyers the past couple of years. They're just as consistent as they are inconsistent. So, I guess just give me your general thoughts. What can you take away the most from the 2019 Phillies?
You can take away the most. We got Bryce Harper for the next 13 years, which is the good thing. But, this year it was bad. You had some points throughout the season where you thought they're a World Series team and they're going to make the NLDS, and then you have some points during the season where they can't even beat the Marlins. It was just really up and down season, which was really frustrating to watch. But I think hopefully next year there's just a lot more consistent play out of them.
I think the greatest takeaway you take from this Phillies team is that no matter how great your offense is, you need pitching. They were just limited by pitching. They didn't have Aaron Nola, who has been the Aaron Nola this year. He was an average pitcher at best, and then the rest of the rotation just significantly dropped down. There was questions throughout most of the year who the number 2 pitcher was, and it was just a basic rotation of subpar baseball, and their offense was great, and they really did produce, and it doesn't seem that way because of the results that they saw every night, but it was just they were just limited by not being able to limit the runs from the other side.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the point about the pitching lacking, because I'm gonna try and make this. I don't want to make this as debatable as possible, but if you're looking at Gabe Kapler and Matt Klentak, you can fault them for a lot of things for different reasons, but I want to ask you guys who you think. I hate to ask the question who's at fault the most because that sounds kind of like a premature question, but I have to ask. If you were to place the majority blame between the two of them, who would it be?
I would have to say Gabe Kapler, just because the last couple of years you've seen from July, maybe August on for the rest of the year, it has just been way worse baseball. They've been such a poor second half team, and that comes from your morale in the dugout. That comes from your leader in the dugout, and Kapler just wasn't that guy. He wasn't vocal enough. He didn't manage his bullpen well enough, which was, again, tough to do. He had a terrible bullpen. But regardless, just not working them in right and just not giving guys enough rest days or using them in wrong situations. Just not buying into the StatCast era that we're in today. I think they need a new mind in their dugout by next year.
I think Klentak had a lot to blame for this season just because he knew coming into the season our lack of pitching. He knew the lack of the bullpen. He knew that we only had Aaron Nola pretty much in the starting lineup, and he still didn't address any of those needs to get anybody. I think that was the most frustrating part with it. Don't get me wrong. I think Gabe Kapler, he stinks. I don't think he's not a good manager either. I think they both should go, to be honest. But
I'm not very much for Klentak either. Besides the offensive gets that he got.
You got Harper and Romuto. We give him that, but besides that, what's he got?
And the desperation moves, getting Jason Vargas and Drew Smiley to try and bolster the pitching staff. That's not bolstering any pitching staff. Not even the Tigers. They didn't win 50 games. I guess that'll help me lead into the off season, and not necessarily an entire off season talk, but we need pitching badly. And unless if we can strike gold in the free agency market, which there's not a lot of that in there now. We're going to have to go out and sign somebody. Mm-hmm. And I think really John Middleton should take this stupid money aspect or idea to a whole new extreme, because if you have stupid money to spend, you should be spending it, and I don't think they spent it to the extent that they should have this year.
And to another aspect, and I don't know the numbers offhand, of course, I don't really think they have it. They have a lot of money guaranteed to a lot of their offensive players, so I think it'll be really tough for them to get a Garrett Cole this year, even though obviously, if this price comes up and he's willing to come to Philadelphia, you can't pass on that. You need to make the numbers work somehow. But I think Madison Bumgarner would be huge for this team. I think that he still has a lot of years left in him. It's obvious that in his last at-bats with the Giants, he's not staying. The fans knew it. He knew it. He's definitely going somewhere. Why not the Phillies, who are a legitimate contender every offseason when they have this lineup? Because I said it a couple episodes ago, everyone's coming back. Like, this is not a must-win year. They have everyone for years, whether it's Harper, who's here for 13 years, or everyone else who's still on arbitration or has their contract going for the next couple of years. So this offense is here to stay. Let's get them a rotation to go around them.
Yeah, I feel like the Phillies made a big mistake during the trade deadline not acquiring any starting pitching. I mean, you had Marcus Stroman on the line, you had Bumgarner, you had Greinke, and even you had Dallas Keuchel, who's just, you could have went out and just gave him $15 million, he would have signed easily.
They had a
But
workout with him.
exactly, yeah, they didn't even go to the workout. So I mean, it's going to be hard going to the free agency because, like you said, Garrett Cole, he's going to get a lot of money. And it's like, do you want to give another guy that much guaranteed money? You've already given Harper one of the biggest contracts in baseball. Do you want to give another guy that much money? But we'll see. So hopefully we get somebody. I mean,
right. And I mean, I think anytime you talk about the 2019 Phillies, you can't go without talking about JT Realmuto. I mean, we've been raving about him, just like, praising him this entire time, and for all the right reasons. I mean, he does everything right, and I understand that you look at the graphic, he's going to be here for the next couple of years, but I want him to be a Philly for the rest of his career. I think if we can do that, that'll be at least a good first step to sustaining success in the long run.
I think right now, he's the best catcher in baseball right now. I think he's going to be one of the best to ever live. I think he represents a lot of what Jorge Posada used to be, what Buster Posey was in his prime. Like, he just has the athleticism around him. He has the hitting for contact. He has the hitting for power. He had the most power of his career this season. And he loves hitting in Citizens Bank Park a lot more than he liked hitting in Marlins. So I think that he's going to be great, and I think that they should build around him and obviously Harper and everyone else, and Hoskins, of course.
yeah, the Phillies managing, one of their top priorities is definitely securing Realmuto for the next so long years. But I mean, he's just had a great season. I mean, he killed all of his career highs this year. I mean, he's obviously the best defensive catcher in baseball easily. His pop time just kills everybody. I mean, he's thrown out it feels like every guy who steals on him, he gets him. I mean,
Over 50%.
exactly.
Right,
It feels like you never see someone steal on him. So I mean, especially Phillies, they struggle defensively a lot sometimes. So I feel like, especially having him at the backstop, he's kind of like the captain of the field. He kind of like controls everything. So I think they definitely need him back next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And another aspect of this team that I wanted to talk about before we move on to Fast Five, we have a very stacked outfield right now. It started with, I think it was McCutchen, Herrera, and Harper. And I think on the last game it was Harper, Hazley, and I don't even know. Kingery, I guess. I don't know. I mean, this outfield is stacked right now, and we're going to get Andrew McCutchen back next year. Harper's obviously going to be in there. The question is do we want to invest in Adam Hazley being a key outfielder for this team, or do you guys prefer to try and re-sign Corey Dickerson, because that's the guy who can play anywhere in your lineup? You preferably want him towards the top, but
yeah.
I mean, personally for me, Corey Dickerson's another guy that I would love to try and get back.
I think he's a huge guy to get back because he's just another contact bat. He was great from the second he became with the Phillies until, unfortunately, when he got hurt. And again, you could plug him in anywhere. He's another athlete like Kingery, who you could just move anywhere in the infield or outfield, and you're going to be comfortable with him there. So you never know with injuries coming throughout the season, but I think he'll be great to have in the opening day outfield.
What do you think they do with him, though? Because I mean, there's 5 players that are going to be fighting for 3 positions, and I didn't even mention Jay Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard. I mean, I think they're definitely, like, when free agency starts, they're definitely going to look at try to re-signing him, but I just don't see how he comes back, especially we have a lot of outfielders. I mean,
Are you talking about Dickerson?
Yeah, I'm talking about Dickerson. I don't think in the free agency, I don't know if he'll come back, just because I think he's going to get a good amount of money. Plus, I mean, he has been injured a lot. I mean, if you look at his past couple of years, he's been injured a lot. So, and Adam Hazley, I think he proved a lot to me, like defensively especially. Like, he's got a lot of upside in him. He's got to get his power up a little bit. But besides that, I mean, he's young yet, so I think they should develop him next year.
And plus, while still on the topic of pitching, could be a Jay Bruce in a trade deal or something like that. It could be getting rid of some of those people so you don't have that crowded dugout of 5 outfielders when you only really need 4 or 3.
Right. And it's a good situation to have, especially given the skill of each of those players. So that's going to do it for Phillies talk. We're going to move on to Fast Five. Tyler, we're going to come to you first. We haven't talked about them yet, even though they play tomorrow, but the Flyers, different outlook in terms of everything. What's your record prediction for them this year?
I'd have to say they're going to be right around the 50 mark. I think they're going to be a little bit above
50 wins.
50 wins, yes. I think they're going to be above 500 significantly. I think this is a good year. They have, arguably, if it's looking what it's going to be Drew, Voracek, and Hayes on that first line. And I think that's up there with one of the best in the NHL, just in regards to being able to spin the puck anywhere, just being able to put a lot of points up on the board. So I think it's going to be great this year.
Caleb, who's going to win the World Series this year and why?
I had the Houston Astros winning the World Series this year just because they're starting pitching. I mean, they have Garrett Cole, they have Justin Verlander, and they acquired Zach Greinke at the trade deadline. I mean, those are arguably 3 of the top 10 pitchers in the MLB. And Garrett Cole and Verlander, they're the 2 top AL Cy Young leaders right now. I mean, they're battling out each other. So, I mean, their pitching, I feel like, is going to put them over the top. Plus, they have Alex Bregman, he can rake too. I mean, he's got a lot of hitters on that team also. I mean, he should be a favorite.
Tyler, the Mets fired Mickey Callaway as early as yesterday, I think, maybe even today. We just found that out. What does that say about the Phillies? Does this give more motivation to not just the organization but fans in general for us to want to get rid of Kapler?
I really don't think this has much to do with it, just because I think that there was a lot coming for Mickey Callaway to be gone. I think that the whole phone gate that they had with him not really making any decisions in that dugout was huge. He didn't have any leadership over the team. That's why Seth Lugo almost got into a fight with a reporter. So he really had zero control. And Fred Wilpon, they're going to kind of cover this as they were a World Series or bust team this year. I really don't think that was the case. I just think that they didn't like his style and didn't think he had control of the dugout.
Yeah, it was definitely a putrid situation up at Citi Field. Caleb, we're 4 games in. Who's your NFL MVP so far?
Right now I have Patrick Mahomes. I mean, he has the Chiefs at 4-0 right now. I mean, he's got 1,500 pass yards and 10 touchdowns already. He's creating highlight plays every week, so.
All right, Tyler, last one. Do you agree with Embiid when he says Jimmy Butler was a huge loss?
I think he was. I think he was your closer in a basketball sense. He was that big shot guy, and they're definitely going to miss him because as soon as he came to the team, he was that dagger in the fourth quarter.
We're going to have a lot more on that kind of talk when we get to Sixers. Can't wait for that. But that's going to do it for this week's edition of Sports Talk Philly. Catch us on social media. Tweet at us on Twitter at Sports Talk LTV. You can also find us on Facebook. Find us there, all the activities going on there. And also look at all of the other LaSalle TV episodes on YouTube. Just type in LaSalle TV Philly and you can find it all there. We hope you enjoy your weekend. Go Birds, and we'll see you next week.